All right, friends, welcome to round 5 here at Grand Prix Quebec City. I'm in the booth, Kenji Egashira with Frank Karsten. We are going to jump right into the match between Christian Calcano and Seth Manfield. And Manfield is going to lead with a Mystic Monastery. There's a Bloodstained Mire on Christian's side who opted not to pop it off at the end of turn.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the blue-black Aristocrats deck, what Calcano will be trying to do in this game is to play out a bunch of creatures that are, well, happy to being sacrificed, like Hangerback Walker or Bloodsoaked Champion. Then sacrifice those creatures with Nantuka Husk and benefit from those sacrifice effects with Zulaport Cutthroat as well as Liliana. Now the name Aristocrats is based on a Pro Tour winning deck from Tom Martell a couple of years ago, who played a deck with Cartel Aristocrat and Falconrod Aristocrat, two creatures that also allowed you to sacrifice your own creatures for some bonus. In this deck currently there are no Aristocrats, but the name has stuck around. It just refers to a deck that is based around sacrifice effects.
Nantuko Husk doing its best impression of an Aristocrat. Calcano popped off both of his Bloodstained Mires. Here you get a look at the overview of the players in the background. You can see Vincent Thibault versus Reed Duke. Christian didn't have any blue sources since he opted to get the double swamp start.
Yeah, probably that indicates that he has another fetch land in hand or a blue source. Otherwise, he probably would have corrected a Blood-Soaked Mire at the end of his first turn to get
Sunken
blue.
Hollow.
Yeah. Oh, apparently not.
Turn to Jace, Vryn's Prodigy for Seth Manfield. One of the best things that you want to do in the Dark Jeskai list. And like you mentioned, Calcano missed his third land drop. All he can do is produce out a Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, not the position he wants to be in. He probably didn't crack his Blood-Soaked Mire because he wants to increase the density of lands in his deck to increase the odds of drawing a land. But he did not get there and left without an answer to Jace. And, well, a couple of 1/1s that cannot even attack into the Jace. Seth Manfield is looking to take over this game in short order.
Yeah, and quickly we see Seth Manfield pop off his Bloodstained Mire, get a Mountain, and turn 3 Mantis Rider. That's exactly where you want to be with this deck. Calcano can only simply draw and level up his Hangerback Walker.
Doing it in the main phase is a standard play these days. You don't want to wait until your opponent's turn and give them an opportunity to kill your Hangerback Walker in response. But still no third land for Calcano. And that Mantis Rider threatens to finish him off quite quickly.
Yeah. Now, in paper, say the positioning was not the same as, they were just drawing their 7 cards. Who do you think is favored in this matchup, the Aristocrats or the Jeskai?
I think I would go with the Jeskai deck, mainly because the Jeskai deck is filled with so many good creature removal spells, and the Aristocrats deck is filled with a bunch of, sacrifice fodder. You see 2 of them already on the battlefield. That are great when you have cards like Nantuka Husk around, or you have a Liliana active, or you get the engine going. But against the Jeskai deck with so many efficient spot removal spells, those Husks are unlikely to live, and then all you're left with is a bunch of 1/1s and 2/2s that are not gonna get the game done by themselves.
Yeah, great
especially
point.
not against double Mantis Rider.
So Seth Manfield looted with the Jace Vryn's Prodigy at end of Calcano's turn, discarded a Dispel, then on his fourth turn, just played another Mantis Rider, and double Mantis Rider is going to quickly end any game.
Yeah, it's not like Calcano has many ways to claw back here. His list does feature some Murderous Cuts, which could kill one of the Mantis Riders if he even has one in hand. But mainly his list is filled with a bunch of creatures, and almost none of them have flying. Whirler Rogue makes some Topters to jump block, I guess. Same with the Hangerback Walker, but not really good permanent answers to those Mantis Riders. And then, there's also this Jace that is threatening to flip on the next turn.
Calcano hits his island here finally on turn 5 for him. Let's see if we can see any comeback potential for him. I do see a Husk in his hand, which is certainly decent with the Hangerback Walker. You mentioned how it could produce flyers to block the Mantis. All right, so DC's Faithful going to exploit the Sultai Emissary, bouncing one of the Mantis Riders.
And this also gives him a third card into the graveyard, so now he can play Murderous Cut for only 2 mana. Yeah, this may allow Calcano to claw back into the game. If he wants to play Murderous Cut here, he should probably do it on his own turn in order to play around another Dispel from Manfield. but
That's a
yeah,
great point.
I mean, it's fine. Next turn you can maybe draw a land, level up the Hangerback, play a Husk, sacrifice the Hangerback at like 3, Thopters, block the Mantis Rider that's gonna come down back on the next turn. So maybe Calcano can claw back into this game, but it's still a tall order for him.
Yeah, and Calcano makes the exact play that you mentioned. Murder's Cut taking out the Mantis Rider. Seth going to loot in response.
Or maybe he's actually cutting the Jace.
Well, that's very possible too.
The Jace isn't doing all that much at the moment because there are no threatening instants into Seth's graveyard yet. But, well, eventually that Planeswalker can also take over the game.
Sure. I think the more immediate threat of the Mantis Rider is what Calcano was opting for.
Oh, okay.
And he also gets to attack in for 2 with the Hangerback Walker since he doesn't have any extra mana.
And I'm not sure why Seth was looting in response to that, but, well, whatever.
Gives Calcano a little bit more information, I guess, that way, huh? Not that it really matters.
No.
But Seth's got to feel pretty good here. He has an active Jace, 5 cards already in the graveyard. We know he has a Mantis Rider in the hand from the bounced exploit on Sidisi's Faithful. So what is Calcano going to need to do here to get back in this game?
Well, he is pretty far behind, so he first needs to play defense, which the Nantuko Husk, along with the Hangerback Walker, the Nantuko Husk in hand plus the Hangerback Walker in play, may allow him to do. So if he draws a land on the next turn, he can play the land, level up the Hangerback, sacrifice it to the Husk, and then get 3 tokens to block the Mantis Rider, get that off of the board, and stave off the flying beatdown. And then afterwards, well, he needs to not give Seth a lot of time to find his burn spells, because the Jeska deck is filled with Crackling Doom, Wild Slash, and so on, with Calcano already at 6. If the game goes long, eventually Seth will probably just burn him out. So then he'll need to play the Whirler Rogue and start attacking quickly, and hope that Seth doesn't have, say, another Mantis Rider or some other good card in hand.
Great point made in chat. Seth actually looted in response so that his Jace didn't flip end of turn and he'd be able to get an extra loot trigger.
Ah, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Good play by Seth, of course. That's why he's the world champion.
Seth played the Mantis
sequencing.
Rider on his turn.
Yep.
And all Christian could do was lay out the Nantuko Husk after missing his 4th land once again. But like you had mentioned, he can sacrifice the Hangerback Walker to block the Mantis Rider for at least a turn or 2.
It's a start, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't take care of the Mantis Rider. Still stays on the battlefield.
Ojutai's command the discard from Seth. Jace Vryn's Prodigy is going to turn into Jace Telepath Unbound. With 2 mana, what are we going to see? Looks like a dig through time. Leaving the Mantis Rider in the graveyard.
Yeah, that is pretty good. I think I already saw a Crackling Doom in Seth's hand. So if he manages to find another Crackling Doom or a Wild Slash or even a Colligan's Command, then the one in his hand plus a flashback from Jace should be able to deal the last 6 points of damage to Calcano. And Calcano doesn't have any life gain in his deck, so he has no way to get out of that, I don't think.
Yeah, and it looked like a Wild Slash and a Crackling Doom or either another Mantis Rider were added to Seth's hand off of that dig through time, which was on Calcano's end of turn. So I think Seth just wants to decide what kind of information he wants to show here, because he does have access to black off of that Nomad Outpost.
Yep. As Seth, of course, also doesn't know exactly what Calcano's list is going to look like. Maybe he saw the list that Calcano played at the Pro Tour, but you never know what Calcano might have added to his deck, like maybe a Dispel or something to the main deck that he might have to worry about. So he needs to sequence his cards to, well, not die to that in any way. As it turned out, Calcano actually registered pretty much the same list as he played at the PT, just making some minor tweaks like cutting a Vampiric Rite for a singleton Treasure Cruise.
We see a great play here from Seth Manfield. He plays out his second Mantis Rider, which I think he found off the dig through time. Calcano was forced to sacrifice the Hangerback Walker to get 2 tokens to block, but Seth Manfield, using Kolagon's command to not only destroy an artifact, but do 2 damage to the other Thopter, since they're both artifacts, and that's going to be game 1.
Yep, taking care of 2 blockers,
Yeah.
1 card. That works too.
So let's jump into our other match here. Vincent the Vault versus Reed Duke.
Yeah, so Reed is on the Esper control list that he also played at the Pro Tour, which has, well, a lot of counter magic, a lot of creature removal spells, and very few win conditions, just 2 Ugins. That's how he is planning to win the game, but we are already in the late game. Ugin is down, and at 7 loyalty, I think that Reed is firmly in the lead here.
Yeah, I would agree completely with you. Now, what kind of things besides Ugin does Reed have to kind of stabilize, or if somebody somehow deals with both of his Ugins, are there any other win conditions in his deck?
Well, there's a Haven of the Spirit Dragon to get back the Ugin.
Okay, fair.
He also has access to some of the Awaken cards, which are sweet additions from Battle for Zendikar, Planar Outburst, and Scatter to the Winds, which allow you to fill your deck with some win conditions just in case, while keeping a good amount of answers. And, well, if need be, there's also 2 Shambling Vents as well as an Erishing Cleric. I mean, Erishing Cleric is a 1/3. It's the only creature with a point of power in his deck, actually. 20 turn clock. Sometimes it gets there. But no, most games are just decided by Ugin.
I know you did a deck tech with Reed earlier today. Did he tell you how frequently he ever awakens his spells with Awaken?
Not all that often. It's a relevant bonus in the late game, but a card like Planar Outburst is mainly in there as a 5-mana Wrath of God. Not so much for the Awaken.
And in fact, we see one in Reed's exile pile right now.
So it looks like Vincent has a bunch of great Abzan cards in hand. And he may have to choose, like, do I attack Reed, like go for the life total? Do I attack Ugin? He probably wants to play Wingmate Rock afterwards to get a better board presence. Although he also has the option of adding Siege Rhino to the board, as well as Absent Charm. Oh, he might be going for Reed's life total here, putting Reed down to 2 life to allow his Siege Rhino to become lethal on the next turn. So if Reed doesn't have a counter spell for the Siege Rhino, or some other way to gain life, like this random Erishing Cleric, the game may be over on the next turn.
I think this was well sequenced out by Vincent, who also has that Gideon emblem, so that's making the Den Protector and every single one of his other creatures, a little bit bigger. That Hangerback Walker actually lethal by itself now, even though it only has 1 counter on it.
Yeah, I like the play. You're just saying to Reed, okay, show me some counter magic, or you are going to die on the next turn. Reed can have all the removal spells that he wants, but it's not going to be enough. And actually, Reed already has to scoop here because, well, he needs an answer to both the Den Protector and the Hangerback Walker. But the Ugin Minus doesn't deal with the Hangerback Walker, so that'll be it. Yeah,
really well played by Vincent. Reed had another Ugin in his hand, but again, the Ugins just don't do anything to the Hangerback Walker. Get an overview of our players here. We're going to go back to the Christian Calcano Seth Manfield match as soon as players are done shuffling their decks. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying. This is round 5 here at Grand Prix Quebec City. Our main feature match, Calcano with Blue-Black Aristocrats, who is currently 4-0. Seth Manfield on Dark Jeskai, also 4-0 as well.
I don't expect a ton of changes after sideboard. Calcano might board in some copies of Duress, maybe, to take out some of Manfield's removal spells or the Ojitai's commands. And Manfield, what does he have in the board? Some Radiant Flames, maybe to clean up Ruler Rogue.
Virulent Plague can be brought in versus a lot of the tokens.
Yeah, Virulent Plague has suddenly become quite a popular sideboard card. I've seen it in a lot of lists. That mainly due to the popularity of Sam Black's banned tokens deck, as well as Martin Muller's Jeskai Ascendancy deck from the Pro Tour Top 8. Virulent Plague matches up really well against those. And against Calcano's deck, I mean, it stops Hangerback Walker from making Topters, it stops the Topters from Ruler Rogue, so Is it good enough? It's at least a consideration against those 8 cards.
I was watching Paul Cheon earlier, and he learned the wombo combo of Virulent Plague plus his own Gideon. You know, he tried to put in a 2/2, and it was just instantly dead.
Yeah. There we see Duress.
So turn 1 Blood-Soaked Champion from Christian Calcano, Seth Manfield, leading with a Smoldering Marsh, perhaps signifying that he might not have enough basics. Although we do see 2 fetches in hand, Polluted Delta and a Flooded Strand. You can see the players writing down the cards, even Seth Manfield, because this way he knows what Christian knows from the Duress. Now, what do you take here if you're Christian? There is a Fiery Impulse and an Ojitize Command. What are you more scared of?
Depends a bit on your hand. I see Christian with a Jace, a Whirler Rogue. Is that a complete disregard? If Christian believes that he can get all his creatures out there before Seth has a chance to play the Ojitize command, then I might just take the Fiery Impulse and leave Seth with the command, and mainly take out Seth's ability to deal with, like for instance, the Jace that may come down on the next turn. So I like Calcano's pick there.
I think Calcano, it's Liliana, right? He doesn't actually have Jace in the deck.
All right. I mean, I saw, yeah, that's completely correct. He doesn't play Jace. There is one of these Planeswalker checklist cards.
Yeah.
Always confusing.
Jace seems like it'd be fine.
I'm going to flip back and then flashback the Duress.
Sure, yeah.
Wouldn't be that bad. But yeah, his deck doesn't have enough instants or sorceries. Misses the 3rd land drop again. Uh-oh.
That's not good for Calcano. Seth Manfield played the Flooded Strand, popped it off to get a Plains, and played that Soulfire Grandmaster, which, of course, Calcano knew about. Blood-Soaked Champion continuing to rumble in. It, of course, cannot block, so Christian happy to trade it away if Manfield would allow for that.
Yeah, if Manfield had blocked, the Bloodsoaked Champion would just come back onto the battlefield immediately, so
exactly.
That would not be a good block at all. Besides, Manfield can just, well, be okay with the race by attacking with the Lifelinger. So. And I think Calcano is expecting Polluted Delta into Mantis Rider here, and to be put under a lot of pressure. The cards that Calcano still knows are in Seth's hand are 2 copies of Mantis Rider, 1 Ojitize Command, and the Polluted Delta. Apparently, Seth does not want to go for the Mantis Rider. You could have done that. Polluted Delta can fetch Island, and then you have all the 3 colors of mana.
Absolutely could have. But that explains that. He had drawn a Nomad outpost for the turn, so I think he wanted to get the land that has to enter the battlefield tapped, as opposed to playing out the Delta. Although I think playing out the Mantis Rider there is perfectly fine, because you got to go Mantis Rider, and outpost on the following turn, right?
Yeah, especially when you see that Calcano is missing his land drops. By playing the Nomad Outpost, Seth gains the ability of casting Ojitize Command on the next turn,
sure,
if he so desires. But maybe Calcano is still missing land drops at that point. You start keeping 4 mana open, Calcano is just unable to cast anything. Whereas if you would be playing Mantis Rider into Mantis Rider, then you put on so much pressure that you can probably just win the game in the air that way. So I'm a bit surprised by that line from Seth.
So Calcano opting to use his Flooded Strand there, making his chance at drawing a land a little bit less, but Murderous Cutting, the second Soulfire Grandmaster Manfield played. Second Duress hitting the Ojitize command that Calcano knew about.
Yeah, and as it turns out, this actually does work out decently for Seth, because maybe he correctly read Calcano for having the Murderous Cut in hand. And if you expect a Murderous Cut, you would much rather lose a Soulfire Grandmaster than a Mantis Rider. So if Manfield was indeed putting Calcano on Murderous Cut, which is maybe difficult because Calcano was just missing land drops, so he could have anything in hand, but it certainly worked out well for him there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Calcano actually has a complete disregard in his hand, so he will be able to take out one of these Mantis Riders if he does draw a 3rd land. Now, of course, Calcano knows that Manfield has 1 more Mantis Rider in hand. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
That's the remaining card that Calcano knows about. Still no Third land there.
It looks like he drew another murderous cut, and he's chump attacking his blood soaked champion.
And maybe Manfield shouldn't have blocked, because now that gave Calcano the fuel to actually cast the murderous cut. It's not like Manfield was under a lot of pressure. Oh well.
Third land, complete disregard for Calcano. But Seth Manfield is just way up at this point. But he's living off the top of his library. I don't think he has too many relevant spells in it. I think he has another tap land. Yeah.
Yeah, Seth just passes the turn. And now Calcano can start casting stuff. There's Liliana, even as lifelink, so that can get him back into the game. Seth maybe has like 1 or 2 turns to draw into some kind of big card.
Sure.
Like another creature like Mantis Rider or Crackling Doom. That's okay.
Last card in hand.
That works as well.
Yeah. So very quick 2 games for Seth Manfield over Christian Calcano, who stumbled on his mana, and Seth happened to have multiple Mantis Rider in both games.
Yeah, some bad draws for Calcano there indeed. Missing his third land drop in both games. And well, as you can see, Jeskai with all the Mantis Riders can punish that pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Let's jump over to our other feature match, Vincent Thevault versus Reed Duke. Abzan mid-range, 4-0 versus Esper Control, 4-0. This is round 5. Vincent's currently up a game, as you can see. 17-15. What do you think about this board state so far? We jumped into game 2 a little bit late, but...
So, Thibaut at least has some creatures on the board, which is exactly where you want to be. Because if you get to the mid or late game and don't have any pressure on the board, you are really far behind against an Esper Control deck. At the same time, Reed also has Jace, which is protecting itself quite nicely. Maybe like shrinking one of the creatures. Now here, a Sorin resolved. Reed had no counter magic for it, so that's a good sign for Vincent. If that Sorin can stick around on the next turn, it can plus allow Vincent to attack the Jace with a bunch of his creatures, and then get back. But that dig from time from Reed might allow him to find, well, maybe a sweeper, like Planar Outburst, maybe an answer to the Sorin in the form of Other End. Maybe eventually an Ugin in a couple of turns from now. So at the moment it's a close game. It could go either way.
Yeah, it looks like that Sorin is a one-of in Vincent's sideboard, so figured a Planeswalker would be a good threat versus the Esper Control deck. I can also see him bringing in 2 Transgress to mind potentially. What about Reed's deck? What do you think he would sideboard in this matchup?
Not all that much. Airshing Cleric, Surge of Righteousness, certainly not for this matchup. He has a Faltong Invocation in the sideboard, which he might board in against Abzan, as well as 2 copies of Dragonlord Silumgar and 1 Dragonlord Ojitai. There we see the Dragonlord Silumgar come down. These are great sideboard cards because Reed doesn't have a lot of creatures in his main deck, so Vincent probably boarded out a lot of his creature removal spells, and now is lacking an answer to that Dragonlord Silumgar.
Yeah. And I think Silumgar is actually really well positioned in this current meta. We saw it just take the Sorin Solemn Visitor, who is on 2 loyalty, so he was able to instantly -2 kill it, permanently get rid of it, and get his own vampire in the process.
Yeah, it's essentially a 3-for-1.
Yeah.
Not bad. And it protects his Jace really well, because Vincent doesn't have any good attacks into the Dragonlord Silumgar. Maybe Vincent can level up his Warden of the first 3, and then start attacking with it on the next turn. But that's gonna take a while, and Reed can probably untap, find an answer to the Warden. He already has Ultimate Prize in the graveyard to flashback with Jace, I think. So this is slowly turning into a tough spot for Vincent.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you made. Vincent's not expecting many creatures from Reed's deck, so since we're in game 2...
Sideboard plan doing work.
Yeah. Take out his removal spells and, Dragonlord Silumgar and a Dragonlord Ojitai now.
Yeah, Reed is not playing as per dragons. These dragons are coming from the sideboard.
Yes.
He doesn't, well, the only dragon reward card he has is like a singleton Faltong Invocation, but suddenly there are the dragons. And Vincent was not prepared for this.
Like you mentioned earlier, that Warden of the First Tree might be Vincent's means to get through here. Of course, Warden of the first tree going to take a while. 2 mana the first time, 4 mana the second, and then 6 to get him fully leveled. But you can activate the last ability multiple times.
That's true. But Reed still has the ultimate prize in the graveyard that may allow him to kill it on the next turn if Vincent just passes the turn with all the mana to level up the Warden. And even if that fails, Dragonlord Silumgar has Death Touch, so you can just block the Warden and trade with it.
Jace getting scarily close to ultimate range here. Currently at 8, only needs to go up 1 more time. Vincent plays a Gideon, Avenger of Ally of Zendikar, and instantly uses the emblem ability. I wanted to call him Avenger of Zendikar. I don't know why.
I think he's helping the fine people of Zendikar.
Yeah, I don't think Vincent's going to be getting some plant tokens here.
No. Yeah, the emblem doesn't change all that much. Still, Vincent's creatures cannot line up all that well against the dragons from Reed. Like maybe Vincent was like, if I just make a token with Gideon, it's just gonna get attacked by the dragons, and I haven't gotten any relevant value off of it. But I still do not see any good attacks for Vincent here, or a good way out of this situation, really. It depends what he left in his deck. Probably Absent Charm. That's a card that you can leave in even if you're unsure whether or not Reed brings in any dragons or creatures. Well, at worst you can draw some cards.
Yeah, very versatile.
So if Vincent would draw Absent Charm and Reed attacks with the Dragonlord Ojutai to get some value, maybe Vincent can set up some profitable attacks. But apart from that, Vincent could draw Siege Rhino, which with the emblem is 5/6, so that one can attack into the Dragonlord Silumgar.
I think something terrifying for Vincent is the fact that he knows Reed still has, or at least probably has Ugin still in the deck, and Vincent's threats all cost, well, currently 2 or less, except for the Morph, which doesn't die to Ugin's Exile, whereas, Reed does have that Jace, but the dragons are so expensive that they're not going to get exiled if that's the case.
Yep.
Alright, so Dragonlord Ojutai coming in for Reed. Vincent blocks with his lone vampire token.
Yeah, so Vincent values, denying Reed a look at the top 3 cards over having, a 2/2 flyer in play that wasn't attacking into the Dragonlord Silumgar anyway. Reed is just ticking up the Jace. Maybe he's planning to go ultimate.
That's very possible here. Alright, so Den Protector, end of turn, can be flipped for Vincent, who's getting back. Let's see. Well, not too many good options. I see 2 Gideons, a Hangerback, and some lands. Or maybe an Anafenza, sorry. So it looked like he got back one of the Gideons, if I'm not mistaken.
That is a Duress being the card drawn. Not exactly an answer to all the dragons.
It's a good preemptive card to draw early, certainly. Especially versus the Esper control deck, but let's see what Reed wants to do here. Might see an Anticipate in response. Oh, a Dig Through Time. Even better.
Yeah, better to cast it than to get it rest, of course.
And that's not something you want to see when you're playing against Esper, them resolving a Dig Through Time.
No, especially not in a position where you are already behind. Reed can almost certainly find some good cards here. Yeah, he might lose one to the Duress, but that's alright. You still have another good cards to keep.
Yeah. Now, as we mentioned earlier, you were doing a deck tech with Reed. Did he say what average turn this deck wins when it does?
He didn't say an average turn, but I reckon it's maybe 20.
Okay.
It takes a while. It's also a deck that you shouldn't play if you are a slow player, because it has so few win conditions, especially in game 1. So going to time is a real risk with this deck. It changes a bit after sideboard, as you see with the dragons. Reed, if he wants to, can finish the game in actually 2 attacks at this moment.
Alright, so it looks like the Duress hits Ojutai's command. It's a very shiny Ojutai's command. Let's see what Vincent has to follow that up. The Gideon that he had returned with Den Protector. All right. And another emblem here. The Den Protectors are certainly getting scary with double emblem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 5/4 Den Protector can now attack into the Dragonlord Cylinder. That's a start. And the Warden of the first tree, which is also 5/5, can also attack into the Dragonlord now. There was a Faltong Invocation being shown in Reed's hand, but Vincent has, well, a 4-power Den Protector as Sacrifice Fodder.
So it looks like the Jace uptick must have hit the Den Protector with a counter on it.
Yes, that's correct. That's the reason why it is not attacking. It's a bit surprising that the small Den Protector is attacking here. Or did it get the Megamorph counter, or is it just a 4/3 right now?
I think it's just a
Otherwise
4/3. And the Warden there being a 5/5 because it was a 3/3 and then getting +2/+2 from the double emblem. Well, it looks like he was attacking Reed's life total.
It's still a bit surprising to me that Reed chooses to block the Warden rather than the 4-power Den Protector.
Well, the Warden, again, can get scarier as the game progresses. Vincent already has access to a lot of lands, one of them being a Shambling Vent, which we might see being relevant here later.
Sure, but Reed just has Faltong Invocation and now can flash back Faltong Invocation if he wants and get rid of all the creatures. And crash to victory with Dragonlord Ojutai.
Yeah. So Reed's going to use his Windswept Teeth, get a lovely, I think, Ice Age Plains. Probably attack in with the Dragonlord, and we might see him flashback to Faltong like you had mentioned, since Vincent only with Den Protector and no mana able to activate the Shambling Vent in response.
That Vent could provide a bit of a problem for Reed perhaps, because, well, with all the emblems it is a 4/5.
Sure.
It gains you some life so you're not dying to the Dragonlord Ojutai. But and it also cannot be targeted by the Jace plus ability, nor can it be efficiently blocked by the Shambling Vents on Reed's side.
That's a great call.
But with Reed still at 16 life and like getting extra cards from Dragonlord Ojutai, he is still firmly in the lead in this game.
So last Faltong there gaining Reed another 4 life. He had gained 4 life previously because he did hold or have the Dragonlord Ojutai on the battlefield. Looks like Vincent's going to scoop him up so they can go to a game 3.
Yeah, with all your creatures out of the way when you're facing a Dragonlord Ojutai, a Jace, no answers to any of it, you might as well pick up your cards and leave enough time for game 3.
So do you think Vincent's going to bring in some of that creature removal now that he's seen the Dragonlords come in?
Yeah, it might even turn into a bit of a guessing game, because if Vincent ends up bringing back some of the creature removal spells, like Murderous Cut, well, maybe Reed actually removes the dragons.
Sure.
And leaves Vincent with some dead cards in his hand. I certainly think that Vincent will keep all of his Absent Charms. I don't think he even boarded them out for the second game. He may still not be all that interested in Dramoka's command, because it is not the best answer to the dragons. A bit tough to fight with a dead touch creature with a 5/4 dragon. But the one Murderous Cut, I would probably put it back.
Sure.
Reed also has Jace as a target, so
Yeah, and it can hit like Shambling Vents if need be.
I might also board out 1 or 2 Wingmate Rocks if I'm Vincent, because they don't match up well against all the dragons.
Okay, that makes sense. If you're just tuning in, folks, this is round 5. We're currently on our second feature match between Vincent Theol and Reed Duke. Abzan versus Esper. We're going to be going to game 3 here momentarily after the players sideboard for game 3 and decide if they want a mulligan or not. Stay tuned for an additional 4 rounds after this. We have about 800 players here at GP Quebec City.
Yeah, kind of a small GP, but a lot of the big names still came out to participate here. We have, well, from Canada, Alexander Hayne, for instance, participating. Charles Shanhar, Reed Duke, Steve Rubin, Seth Manfield. From Europe, also Joel Larson staying around. Mike Segrist, and Black, PV. So lots of big name players still doing their best here in the week after the PT, showcasing all of their knowledge of the standard format.
Yeah, we actually got to watch both Alexander Hayne and Mike Sigrist last round. Hayne got defeated by Dark Jeskai, whereas Sigrist won his match where he cast 3 consecutive Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hungers.
That's incredible.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, the Abzan deck that Vincent is playing, it wasn't that popular at the Pro Tour, like only 4% of the day 2 metagame, but it did eventually win the event in the hands of Kazuyuki Takimura, and also Paul Dean from Canada made top 8 with it as well. So Siege Rhino, still a good card in Standard. It wasn't all that popular at the Pro Tour, but well, it's still a force to be reckoned with. And there we have it, double Siege Rhino in the opening hand, along with a bunch of lands.
Looks like Vincent's on a mulligan to 6 here.
Yeah, looks like an easy keep. 3 lands, a Warden of the first 3 and double Siege Rhino, so you have, well, most of your curve locked up. Turn 1 Warden, turn 2 level it, and then, yeah, if you find a 4th land, you can play the Siege Rhinos. Maybe you find an Anafenza somewhere in between. Card goes to the bottom.
Alrighty. Now, if he pops off the fetch immediately, that scry was kind of irrelevant, but
yeah, that's true.
We'll see him almost certainly getting a forest here.
Yeah, his hand may actually be 3 fetch lands, so he may not be... Yeah, he probably wasn't keeping anything that was on top. I can't really imagine a card being on top where you're so happy to see it that you don't want to play the turn 1 Warden and be able to attack for 3 damage already on the second turn.
Vincent going to pop off his Flooded Strand here. Almost certainly going to get a Plains and level up the Warden like you had mentioned for curve purposes. I think he drew a Silk Wrap for the turn, which is a little bit interesting. Silk Wrap only hits Jace in reads. Oh, I guess it hits Erishan Cleric too.
Reed probably boarded out the Erishan Cleric. Yeah, that is a very restrictive removal spell. Sure, you want an answer for Jace, but if Reed doesn't have Jace or draws it somewhere in the late game, that Silk Wrap is just going to rot in your hand.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like it all that much against the deck with only 4 Jaces, where as the alternative you just have a big threat that's always good to draw.
Hopefully for Vincent's sake, after leveling, Reed just jams down Jace Vryn's Prodigy on his next turn.
Yep. And the land sequencing with this deck is also quite interesting, and one of the more difficult aspects of the deck really, because you want to be able to get, well, all your colors of mana, so you can play Siege Rhino for instance, but you also want to be able to hit your curve. So it is quite standard to go basic into then some kind of fetch land that fetches for black mana, but actually Vincent did not have one.
Yeah, looks like he drew Gideon, ally of Zendikar, for his next turn. So he has double Siege Rhino, Silk Wrap, Gideon.
Awkward.
And Reed is able to untap here with all of his mana and a Mage Ring.
I think that also explains why Vincent was thinking so much on his first turn, because he had the option of like not hitting the curve, but then using the Flooded Strand to get the blue-black dual land, such that he would have access to black mana and well, have all the colors. He went for the curve, which would have worked out extremely well if he had drawn another land, another fetch land, another black source, but he didn't get there, and now he's stuck with imperfect mana, no 4th land. He has a Duress and I believe an Absent Charm in hand that he cannot cast at the moment, so that decision seemed reasonable, but it has certainly backfired on him.
So on Vincent's last turn there, he played a Hangerback Walker for 1. Reed countered it with Ojutai's Command, and looks like he drew a card. And happy to pass on his turn. Vincent drew a Sunken Hollow for his turn, which is a nice one, the perfect land, I would say.
He was deciding whether or not to play Gideon or Siege Rhino. He went for the Gideon, which would have worked out well if Reed was just holding a couple of creature removal spells. But as it turns out, Reed had Negate, which countered the Gideon, wouldn't have countered the Siege Rhino. But yeah, that's just the risks that you have to take.
And Reed with a lot more creature counter spells in his deck than cards like Negate, so...
Yeah, and Vincent also has a choice to make because he has 2 black discard spells in hand. He could either try to hit his curve by playing Siege Rhino into Siege Rhino, but if he does it that way, these cards are probably going to get answered. Then maybe Reed doesn't have any cards remaining in his hand. And then you play the discard spells and they just see an empty hand or maybe a couple lands. So I do like going for the Transgress here, probably followed by the Duress on the next turn. And then, well, the Siege Rhinos, which will, hopefully for Vincent, stick around.
Yeah, and actually, this Transgress shows that Reed's hand is surprisingly not very strong. He has a, let's see, an Utter End, a Surge of Righteousness. What did Vincent take there? Looked like he took the planner
Outburst.
Outburst.
Yep. Leaving Reed with a Surge of Righteousness and an Utter End. Still 2 answers to the Siege Rhino.
Sure. Anticipate a good draw for Reed.
Yeah, I like playing it in the main phase here because you might just draw Dragonlord Ojitai or Jace, and then you want to be able to cast it immediately. No point in waiting till Vincent's turn.
And we can see Reed playing a little bit quicker here. We only have about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less than 10 minutes left in the match. Ojitai's command is going to counter that Siege Rhino and draw Reed a card. The land for the turn. That Majoring Network is currently sitting on 3. Oh, we found a Silk Wrap target.
Finally. It took a while, but there we are.
Looks like Duress is going to lead the Stampede here for Vincent. Who I have to imagine takes the Utter End, because Utter End can, in fact, hit the Silk Wrap.
Yeah, leaving Reed with a Surge of Righteousness that can take out the Siege Rhino in a couple turns from now. But if you just look at the hands of the players, Vincent will still have a Siege Rhino and an Absent Charm remaining after Reed takes out that Siege Rhino with the Surge.
Yeah.
So at the moment...
Oh,
well,
a perfect top deck for Reed here and dig through time. That is exactly the card he was looking for.
Absolutely. I was going to say Vincent is favored here, but that dig through time changes everything. That's the perfect card for Reed.
We'll see what goodies Reed can find here. Remember, these players are in game 3.
Yeah, if he's able to find another dig through time, start chaining digs, or maybe an Ojitai's commands to counter Siege Rhino and draw some more cards, or how about just Ugin?
Ugin seems pretty good.
Take out the Silk Wrap with the minus ability, get back to Jace. Jace on the next turn threatens to transform, flashback the Other End. Yeah, this is going downhill for Vincent. That dig through time into Ugin, incredible.
And that Majoring Network actually did a ton of work there too. And if we're looking at Vincent's sideboard and main deck, he doesn't actually have a good way to deal with Ugin besides like Duress, Transgress the Mind. So he is in a tough position. Now we saw him win through it game 1, I believe, but he's so far back on the back foot that I'm not sure he can do it here.
Yeah, this is game 1. He had a bunch of creatures out at that time.
Yeah.
Over here, no board presence at all to pressure the Ugin, and maybe in the previous standard you would have Hero's Downfall in your deck in order to just destroy the Planeswalker. But the Absent decks that are being played these days obviously don't even have access to Hero's Downfall and don't play Ruinous Path for mana-based reasons. So that Ugin is here to stay.
Another Silk Wrap on that Jace, which was previously under a Silk Wrap already. We'll see if Reed wants to use -2 on Ugin to remove that Silk Wrap again.
Probably.
Seems like a viable strategy.
Yeah, you just want to be able to get access to the sweet cards that you have in your graveyard by flashing them back on the next turn with Jace.
Island doing its best impression of a sinkhole there as it falls to the ground. Picks it up.
Yeah, so Reed is very much ahead here in this game, but you see he is playing really fast. His mechanics are quick. There are not many minutes remaining in the round. Reed is just trying to win before time runs out.
Yep. Reed quickly resolving a dig through time there, quickly jamming down the Jace. Or sorry, actually he's going to uptick the Ugin here as opposed to using the -2.
Yeah, especially if there is very little time remaining, and with him also finding Dragonlord Ojitai, giving him already some win condition. That seems reasonable. Just shorten the clock and win in time.
We see a Siege Rhino on Vincent's side, who can only stare at the board position of Reed and kind of shrug past the turn.
Yeah, now Reed can even -4 the Ugin, still get back his Jace from under the Silk Wrap, keep his Dragonlord Ojitai around, and answer Vincent's complete board. So this is likely going to end up in favor of Reed Duke in 1 or 2 turns.
Yeah, and it's exactly like you mentioned, Ugin ticking down, exiling the Siege Rhino, the Warden, and the Silk Wrap, giving Reed back that Jace Prince prodigy.
Yeah, I think the key this game was that Vincent in the early turns decided to go for the curve of turn 1 Warden, turn 2 level it up, but then due to the way he sequenced his fetch lands, did not have access to the black mana, so that left him unable to play some cards for a couple of turns, and he just fell too far behind. He went for the high risk, high reward play and didn't get there.
Abzan Charm is targeting Reed's Dragonlord Ojutai right now. Reed going to respond with a Silumgar's Command, a card that we don't see too frequently. Bouncing Ugin, countering the Abzan Charm. Wow.
Yeah, well, you have to choose some modes with Silumgar's Command. Bouncing Ugin is probably not why Reed put the card in his deck, but hey, it resets the loyalty just in case, I guess, and ensures that the Planeswalker will come down on the next turn. Once again, ticking up. Yeah, I don't think there's anything left in Vincent's deck that can get him out of this.
Yeah. Ugin being replayed here, ticking up, putting Vincent to 2 life, a Shambling Vent post-combat. That Mage Ring allowing Reed to leave up 5 or 6 mana, and we see the handshake. So Reed takes the match 2-1 over Vincent the Bolt here in round 5 at Grand Prix Quebec City. Abzan mid-range versus Esper Control.
Reed is a master with this deck.
Yeah, like you had said, if you don't know the deck very well, you don't want to play it because it's so grindy. It's so, you have to think through it quite a bit.
And Reed also was able to find the perfect time at